Welcome to the Gyrl Podcast, where purpose meets inspiration. Each week, I sit down with incredible individuals who open up about their real life journeys, the wins, the setbacks, and the lessons in between. Whether navigating career moves, entrepreneurship, or personal growth, you're in the right place. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's go up together. All right. Happy Thursday, my friends. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope you all are having a fantastic week. Sorry about that. As for those of you who can see me, yes, I was shifting. I was actually turning my phone down, putting it on mute because I forgot. But let's talk about our guest for today. I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Allison Alford. She is a communication scholar, speaker, and clinical associate professor at Baylor University. Her book, Good Daughtering, explores how generations of women have internalized good girl expectations and how naming daughtering as invisible labor can help women finally feel like enough. That's loaded. And I am very excited to have the conversation. So let's go ahead and grab Allison and bring her into the show. All right, well, welcome back, and let's welcome Dr. Allison to the show. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, why don't we get started first by having you tell our audience listening or watching who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am Dr. Allison Alford. I'm the author of a new book called Good Daughtering, and it's based on my research that I've been doing for over 10 years. So I have a PhD in communication studies with an emphasis in family. And I'm currently a professor at Baylor University, where I teach business communication, but continue to do my family communication research. So all of that combined into this opportunity to do a book. I'm also a daughter, a wife, a mom, and a community member. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Allison. Well, let's go ahead and dive into your book. So, Good Daughtering, the work you've always done, the credit you've never gotten, and how to finally feel like enough. It introduces the idea of daughtering. What inspired you? I know you said you were doing research, but what is the sort of inspiration behind you writing this book, and what does that term really mean?
Yeah, this was over 10 years ago. I was in school. When you're in school, you're reading a lot, you're thinking a lot. And I was a mom already. I was a wife. I was, a student. So I was noticing when I would read something that helped me understand that role better, and I noticed like there's a lot out here about how to be a good parent or how to be a good partner or even how to be a good friend. And but I was, part of this beautiful family of strong, smart women. And I
Mhm.
really feel like I was raised in a matriarchy, with my grandmother at the head of that, who led, her family through death and poverty and trauma and got an education despite all of that. And here I
Mhm.
was, two generations later, kind of sitting pretty, but
Mhm.
realizing I had come from these really thoughtful warrior women,
Mhm.
and it wasn't just mothering that accomplished that sort of sense of family that we were in. It was aunting, it was sistering, it was
Mhm.
also daughtering. And I even noticed, my mom and I would not be as connected as we are if I didn't put in the work. Like I
Right.
have to give her time and energy,
Mhm.
and yet I wasn't reading that anywhere in the research. And in
Mm.
the world of academia, it's like, if it's not written down, it's not real. And so I was like, okay, then it's on me. I've got to write it down. And you can't write it down without doing a study to make sure it's real. So I started doing
Mhm.
the research, doing the studies, and asking, so over the past 10 years, I've asked hundreds of women, what is daughtering? What do you do as a daughter to keep your family connected? So, what I've learned is that daughtering is the often invisible labor, emotional labor, cognitive, logistical, and identity labor that women do in families to try to keep everybody connected. And
Mhm.
oftentimes, we're doing so much of it without realizing it. until we're burnt out and we're
Mhm.
wondering, why is there no acknowledgement for this?
Yes, and I have to tell you, like, I immediately resonated, when I first, talked to your team and did, research on you and saw this book, and I said, "Oh my gosh, like, this is exactly what every daughter feels," and especially when you're either the older child, the older daughter, or you're the as in my case, I'm the second oldest, but I've played the oldest child my entire life. And it's like you think about, like, especially, now, being older and you're trying to figure out how to keep your family together, how to make sure everybody stays connected. And I think something that you mentioned is really important. It is the idea that, like, we have to invest time in our parents and our families to have these relationships. And I think that it's interesting on sometimes on the outside looking in. Like, I've just gotten to an age where honestly it was like the pandemic that really opened my eyes to this opportunity. Both of my parents were retiring at that time, and it just opened up this opportunity to develop friendships with them, like, and not just be their child, but like my parents are my friends now and we talk all the time. And that became something that was really important to me because I was like, I don't want to lose this opportunity to greater connect with my parents on things that extend beyond just me being their child and them being my parents. Like, what do friends do? What do we talk about? And I think, like you said, it's important that people put in the work. It's not just on the parent to call and check in and see how you're doing, but it's on the child to actually make an effort to make sure that those relationships are strong.
Yeah. I love so much of what you said, and I also have a tiny bit of pushback as well. I think that what makes relationships strong is investment. So in
Mhm,
the book, particularly, I talk about resources. What are our resources? Our resources are our time, our
mhm,
money, our attention, paying attention,
mhm,
and we have to decide where to put those. And of
mhm,
course, if we put those toward our parent or our family or listening to drama from a cousin or,
mhm,
taking time out of our workday for our sister to call or brother to call, then our time is drained. Our energy
mhm,
for emotional listening is drained. And that means I don't have that to give at my workplace or to my spouse when I go home or to
mhm,
my child because I gave it to you. Now,
mhm,
most daughters still, we're not saying we want to do less. Like, ugh, I hate this, I don't want to do. We just want to acknowledge, like, thank
mhm.
you for the time that you put in. Thank you for the emotional effort
Yeah.
and kind of just having some gratitude and feeling seen.
Mhm,
Uh,
mhm.
and
I
so
agree with that.
yeah, so it's like it's a bank account. It's pluses and
Mhm.
minuses, and, we get fulfilled when people want us, when people need us, but
Mhm,
also when they listen to us, when they give
mhm,
us a phone call or a text or a funny video, they send us.
mhm. Yeah, I
So
agree with
kinda
you.
it works both ways,
Yeah.
and, but the only pushback I have for you is this idea of friendship. And I think this is something I talk about in the book that it's so important to use the specific word for the specific role, right?
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
with our parents, like with a friend, there's often peer like age similarity,
mhm, mhm,
income similarity, things we are interested in doing together. You go fishing, you go shopping, you go whatever, traveling. And, but with a friend, you can break up with them. You can leave them behind and just be like, "Psh, bye." But with
mhm,
your parent, you can't ever do that. And you're
mhm,
also never going to be their age or have lived through some of the social and political things they lived through.
mhm, mhm,
And so instead, what I advocate for is thinking of different words to describe what you're talking about, which is intimacy,
mhm,
closeness,
mhm,
trust,
mhm,
safety, the
mhm,
ability to disclose your personal life to them and that they receive it and that they honor
mhm,
and respect you. And
mhm.
I think of that as like you've entered a world of daughtering plus plus. Like you're not
Uh-huh.
friending them, you're daughtering them, and they're
Mhm,
parenting you in a beautiful way. And when we call it that, we honor our role as a daughter
Mhm.
by glorifying and validating that the daughter role is an essential role. It's not something different. I'm not mothering
Mhm.
my mother. I'm
Mhm.
not,
Mhm.
neighboring my dad. I'm daughtering them. And I highly value that in my life and I give
Mhm.
effort and resources to it.
Mhm. I like that. I can receive that. I like that. Because it's very true. I mean, like, once you think about it and it's laid out, yes, like, you don't leave your family. I know people probably you might be listening and saying, "Well, I'll leave my family," but you don't technically, like, you don't leave
Yeah, you
your
can never
parents.
stop
Yeah.
thinking about them, being connected
Yeah.
to them, biologically tied to them. You
Exactly.
can't leave them.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I like that. Daughtering plus plus.
Yeah.
So when you think about I was like, I know that when you how did you come to define daughtering as invisible labor? I know we just talked a little bit about what that labor entails, but how did you come to define and study daughtering as invisible labor?
Yeah, so I started asking women in these interviews, "What do you do as a daughter?" And the first thing I noticed was that they could barely even talk about their work as a daughter. They just kept saying, "Well, my mom does this," or, "When my mom's around, this happens." And I'm like, "Well, you're telling me stories about your mom,"
Mm,
which is giving me as a researcher an understanding that we're having trouble with language identifying how do I
mhm,
show up, which
mhm.
means I am not even aware of how I show up.
Right.
I'm not
Okay.
even
Yeah.
aware of how hard this is or how draining this is. It's like, when a friend says something to you and they tell you a story about their life or their work or whatever, and you're like, "Friend, that sounds so hard. You're doing so much." And they say, "I am. I didn't even notice that. Thank you for pointing it out."
Mhm,
You know,
mhm,
these women were talking about how they gave space to their mom, how they gave her time, how they would handle conflict. Like,
mhm,
one daughter said, "It doesn't matter what my mom wants to say to me. If she wants to yell at me, if she wants to lecture me for an hour, I'm going to sit there and take it." And I
mm,
was like, "That is a gift. A gift I wouldn't give anybody else. I wouldn't sit there for an hour
mhm.
and take it from anybody else.
Mhm,
And so I started to notice so much of what women do in our families, we're not seeing it because it's part of this invisible world. It's stuff
mhm,
that we're thinking about. One daughter told me that she was thinking about how in 20, 30, 40 years, her parents were going to need her as the only child. They were going to
mm,
need her to make care decisions, health decisions, financial decisions. So she had decided with her spouse to start putting money in a bank account 20,
mm,
30
mhm.
years early.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
She didn't tell her parents that, right? Because she didn't want
Mhm.
them to think that she thinks they're old or
Right.
needy, or for them to think, "No, use that money on a vacation." She was doing that for them and her.
Mhm.
She wanted to know 20 years from now, I'm not gonna be, panicked about what to
Yeah.
do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it was thinking, it was planning, it was, daughters would tell me, "I go to this event, like a holiday, and I have to be like the emotional barometer. Like I'm trying to make sure everyone stays
Mhm.
level. And if I know my brother's going to be acting up, I'm calling him before. I'm
Yeah.
strategizing. I'm like even getting other people like go over there and distract him because he's going to cause mom to be upset, and if
Mhm.
mom's upset, the whole day's ruined, we're all ruined, so this daughter was really was like spreading her emotions out like a spider web over
Mhm.
everyone to try to bring it back to neutral. And then she
Mhm.
would leave and go home and need a day of rest
Right. Yeah.
because she had to reload. So I came up with these four categories of
Okay.
labor that daughters
Mhm.
do. And the first one is acting. And that's when we're acting like a daughter and it's really obvious. When I go visit, when I take a gift, when I make a phone call, when I
Mhm.
she needs help painting the room, I go paint the room for my parents or do yard work with
Mhm.
them. Real visible
Mhm.
acting um like a daughter. And then the next one is thinking, which
Mhm.
unless you narrate what you're thinking, nobody knows what you're thinking. So, cognitive
Mhm.
labor. The third one is feeling or emotional
Mhm.
labor. And sometimes it is, helping with conflict. Sometimes it's even
Mhm.
fixing your own emotions so that you're not the problem. And that's really a tough thing for women to do. And it really eats at us over time. But we're like, I'm going to control me in this situation and then everything will
Mhm.
be fine. And
Mhm.
then the last one is being or identity work. And
Mm.
it's how we carry ourselves as daughters, even when there's no parent around, or even if we are no contact with our parent, or even if our parent has died. And
Mhm.
it's a type of labor where we still have to figure out, how do I fit in this generational lineage of
Mhm.
family? Do I sound like my mom? Do I keep making the family recipes? Do I tell my children about our family traditions? And
Mhm.
so 3 out of 4 of those are not overt. They're not obvious to anyone else, but they
Right.
definitely take energy from us to
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And so that's why I consider 3 of the 4 things invisible,
Right.
invisible daughtering.
Mhm.
And, um, and so as we talk about it and put a name to it and
Mhm.
describe it, and I even recommend to women that we narrate it, we tell
Mhm.
others what we're thinking, what we're feeling, what our identity work we're
Mhm.
doing, everybody else can start to see as well how valuable and important and time consuming doing
Mhm.
daughtering is.
Mhm. Mhm. So, is that part of the reason why you think so many women don't feel like they're enough as daughters? Is it because of this space of like not feeling seen and not, people not actually knowing all the effort and the investment that women make?
Yeah, that's for sure part of it. If you're going around, it's just like in the house that you live in. If you're going around picking up shoes and doing the dishes and taking the trash out, and nobody ever says thank you for doing that, or is like, oh gosh, I realized you spent half an hour working and I didn't work, then um, like what started out as giving a gift, over time you start to feel taken advantage of, right?
Mhm.
Because you're not getting any recognition. And when we live with our partner, we live with our kids, we're really aware, like little kids aren't going to see that and they're not going to
Mhm.
thank us. But when we're talking about adults, like our partner, our spouse, and now we're talking about our
Mhm.
parents, our grown siblings, like these people need to get it together and
Mhm.
notice that I spent the money on the Mother's Day gift, or I
Mhm.
spent 5 hours planning the cruise that they didn't, or I checked on mom 10 times last month to see if she had gotten her shingles shot, and gone to the doctor and had it through and felt, and so I think that we part of feeling like enough is having
Mhm.
validation and
Mhm.
feeling like we matter. But there's another cultural component to feeling like enough. And that's that women often in all of our spaces of motherhood, of working, of being a neighbor, of being a community member, being a friend, we fall victim to this feeling of, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I hard enough? Trying hard enough to be what everyone wants me to be. And in my book, I talk about that a little bit as um, we have to kind of get into political and economic
Mhm.
concerns and thinking about the capitalist society that we live in is
Mhm.
always go, 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 more, more, more.
Mhm.
But it's also harder on women. Women are
Mhm.
always expected to do more and shut up about it, right?
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
um, and so these things combined with no recognition and combined with, because we're never talking about it, none of us are really sure what good daughtering looks like.
Mm.
How do I know when I've achieved it
Mhm.
and or gone past it and I'm over, giving? We're not sure because we haven't been talking about it. And so we're using like Instagram highlight reels to see what our friends are doing or our sister, or we're just listening to what our, aunt calls us up and says, you need to be doing this for your mom.
Mhm.
And she's trying to be a good sister, but she's not taking into account all that other stuff you've got going on.
Yeah.
So we just never feel like we make it to the goal line.
Mhm.
And that's for a lot of reasons. So the individual family reason, but also this bigger societal reason. And it's worth it to have this conversation to say, like, yeah, as a society, we need to give women a break as mothers, as workers, as daughters.
Mhm. Yes, I agree. I can. That resonates. Let's talk about the Good Girl script. Um, how does it how does that shape women's self-worth?
Yeah. I think it's so important that so many of us, this is kind of related to what we were just talking about, are worried about being good enough.
Mhm.
And we often feel like to be a good woman, we have to be pretty and feminine and sweet. And men are always saying to us, smile more, right? And we
Mhm.
often feel like to be a good daughter, we have to be sweet. We have to be showing up a certain amount of times. We have to be nice.
Mhm.
And I think that it's worthwhile to say, I had a lot of women talk to me in these interviews and say, "You wouldn't wanna talk to me because I'm not the right kind of daughter." And then they
Mm.
go on to basically tell me they're, like, aggressive and argumentative, and they're annoyed all the time, and I ended up calling this the porcupine daughter. And,
Mhm.
as women, we can feel like if I'm not acting pretty, then I'm acting ugly. And if I'm acting ugly, ugly is like not acceptable in family. But these women were telling me, one of them said that her family calls her the bully daughter. And
Oh.
she laughed and she said, "I'll take it because I'm the only one trying to make positive change around here." So
Mhm.
they were uncomfortable. Like, she's always bringing up new stuff. She's always trying to make us do different stuff. And she was like, they're negative about it, but I know it's the right thing to do. I
Mhm.
want to push our family forward. I want to
Mhm.
break generational curses. I want to bust family secrets. And if that means I'm the porcupine or the bully or
Mhm.
the ugly daughter, like, I'll
Mhm.
take it, and
Yeah.
so I think that, um, we sometimes are conditioned to think that to be a good daughter is being sweet, providing
Mhm.
care, giving emotional management,
Mhm.
self-sacrificing, laying down our whole lives so our family feels good, and there's another way that we can envision being a daughter. And,
Mhm.
one of those is to say, I can do nothing and I'm still worthy of love. And I'm still a
Mhm.
member of this family. Another is to say, I can be mean, gross, rude, and actually that could be helpful to my
Mhm.
family.
Yeah.
And, and really, not that I'm encouraging us to all be rude in our families, but I'm saying we need a little bit of everybody. We
Yeah.
need a
Yeah.
rainbow of
Yeah.
daughters
Exactly.
and we don't just have to rely on this generational inheritance of
Mhm.
expectations, but we get to say, "Who am
Mhm.
I now? What's the social, political context? What do I have to give? What's my
Mhm.
battery level?"
Mhm.
And then be that person, that daughter with confidence.
Yes. Yeah, like you get to have and establish boundaries for yourself, and you get to be assertive in communication style when you need to be that way.
Yeah. Does
But
that
you're
resonate with you? Are you like that in your family?
Um, I mean, I think I'm like, I will push. I mean, I think I'm somewhere in the middle because,
Yeah.
like, I will push things forward. I will say things that are probably uncomfortable for like my mom a lot, tons of times. My mom
Yep.
is like, "Oh, well," and I was like, "Well, I'm just saying the way it needs to be said because why are we beating around the bush here?" So like but it's all done. It's all done with the best intention. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Love.
like I want it to be better for us. We don't have to accept things that happened in the past. And I think you said that as far as like the woman who said, breaking generational curses and things like that. I'm like, yeah, we do not have to settle. Like you don't have to settle for the way it's always been. And like we had a lot of that, like probably more so like seeing that on my mom's side, like with her family and more of those types of things and situations. So where it's like, no, just like having a voice and standing up, for what you want for yourself is important, not what everybody else wants. So,
It's so interesting that you say that. I have in the book a chapter about different cultural contexts and different like ways of thinking about mothering, motherhood, the mother line, generational impact. And I did this interview with a Gen Z aged
Mhm.
gal named Leah Boveda, and her mom. She's a student in college right now, and her mom's a professor. They had done like a mother daughter research project, but they wrote about daughtering. And
Mm.
Leah described daughtering, particularly, she said, in the Black feminist literature and community, as pushing. Like, that a daughter, and that's not just daughtering your own mom, but daughtering to the, generations above you by being like,
Mhm.
"No, we're not doing that anymore. We're
Mhm.
pushing
Mhm.
forward. We're evolving." And that
Mhm.
she felt like that was a really important part of her cultural identity,
Mhm.
was not just taking
Mhm.
the sort of, because there's this idea sometimes of communal mothering, that lots of women in the generation above you can mother you. And
Mhm.
she's like, "I'm not taking not good mothering. Like, I'm not taking
Yeah. Yeah.
things that don't belong anymore." And
Uh-huh.
part of
Mhm.
my responsibility as a daughter is pushing back,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
it's a push and a pull. It's a tension. But you
Mhm.
can't just forget that part of our responsibility of being a daughter is to push the family
Mhm.
forward. And I really
Mhm.
took that and thought a lot about how I could put that into my own family system
Mhm.
and think,
Mhm.
when I see my mom or dad being uncomfortable with new things I'm bringing up, I
Mhm.
don't have to be ashamed, guilty, embarrassed. I can be proud of
Mhm.
me for doing the daughtering that needs to be done in this
Mhm.
family, as uncomfortable as it is for all of us as I'm doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I think somebody has to do it because, everybody, if you're just sitting around waiting, I'm like, well, I'm not waiting for am I waiting for them to do it, Mom? Because I
Yeah,
even think
they're
about
not gonna do
something
it.
something as simple as like in the introduction of therapy into our
Mhm.
family. And I remember like when I started therapy back in 2019, I remember having a conversation with my parents and they both were like almost offended that
Yeah,
I was going to therapy. And then it was this immediate thing of like, it must have been something we did. And I was like, "This
mhm.
doesn't have anything to do with you." And I was just very straightforward with that. I was like, "This doesn't have a thing to do with y'all. Like, this is
Mhm.
about me evolving and me continuing to grow into the person that I want to become." Now, do we address things in childhood? Yeah, like we do, because that's a part of what therapy is.
Mm.
That's how you figure out the triggers and the things that have made you who you are today. But the way you grow is by being able to release those things and, find ways to, that conversation with them, and it was uncomfortable for both of them, because they associated my mom immediately thought she had done something wrong. My dad immediately thought I was crazy. So, therefore, after I had to like setting both having two different types of conversations with each of them. And then now it's like they're very much on board. They like
Yeah,
here, my dad it's so funny advocating for it now and being like, yes, like I really understand why people need to like have someone to talk to because of this and this. I was like, yeah, so do you see how
yeah,
I put
yeah.
this forward for the family? And it's like,
Yes. Beautiful.
but yeah, but I think it's
I
like,
love that.
yeah, and it's definitely just interesting, the conversation. But I feel like if I'd said nothing and just kind of like fallen into like this childhood like pattern of like they're the parents, so they know what's right and not done anything, then I feel like they would be stuck. They would not have evolved in this space.
Yeah,
So
could have done it, but not told them, right? And then you're
yeah.
not creating this communication, so you're not introducing new ideas. You
Mhm.
would, in some ways, be disconnecting. But the daughtering that you're doing is by saying, I stand in my space. I think it's valid. And also, it's not about you. I'm not centering you, dad, or you, mom. I'm
Mhm.
centering me. And I'm just
Mhm.
letting you know.
Yeah.
And, and so I think that's a beautiful way that daughters can also take that and think of how we might address other topics, whether it's
Mhm.
what I want to do with my finances, what I want to
Mhm.
do in my family system with my parenting, or, my
Mhm.
education choices, is being able to say, I'm daughtering and respecting you by letting you know, but
Yeah.
I and keeping you in contact with the system and as it evolves,
Mhm.
because I have a choice not to disclose,
Mm.
and that creates disconnect. So ultimately, as a daughter, I am trying to create connection and stay in relationship. But it's not always going to be pleasant or comfortable, and you're not always going to agree. But the fact that I'm letting you in to my
Yes.
life is
Mhm.
my gift to you, and
Exactly.
I'm going to have enough power to stand here and say, I've already decided this is what's right for me. And I'm
Mhm.
just letting you know. And I think
Mhm.
if we have a little bit more of that as we evolve into adulthood and aging, and we go with our aging parents into their elderhood, we
Mhm.
get into that practice of knowing the difference between when we're right and when our parents are right,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it gets even trickier as they get older.
Awesome. Now, Allison, for anyone who may be listening or watching, a woman who wants to release these inherited expectations, where should she begin?
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful way to think about our lives and not just be like, well, let me make this tiny bit of my life better, but let me make the system better. Let me think about breaking the cycle.
Mhm.
And this is such a smart, beautiful way to come at this is like I am a member of a family over generations. So where I suggest that women begin, and this is what I suggest in my book, and I have activities at every chapter in the book that take you through this, is the first part of that is identifying your own story. What
Mhm.
is my story? Who am I? What have I done so far? Then in the second part of the book, it's about calibrating. Do I like that? Does this contribute to my overall life's happiness? Do
Mhm.
I believe in the type of person that I've been acting like? Or do I want to make changes? And then the third part of the book is how to make those changes internally and within your family system. And it
Mhm.
includes activities like writing your daughtering mission statement.
Mhm.
And that is kind of borrowing from, company organizational culture, but saying, I'm going to think of this as a system and I'm going to set new ideas for myself. I'm going to
Mhm.
vision cast for myself and my family. And I'm going to believe that these things, this family system, we can change. And it'll be
Mhm.
little by little
Mhm.
over my lifespan, but it'll continue into the generations beyond me. But it's up to me to get that work started. So I guess the answer is, get the book and start
Mhm.
doing the activities in the book. So I would love that. And when I wrote this book and I did the activities, I really envisioned friends, sisters, cousins texting images of the book activities
Mhm.
to each
Mhm.
other. Like
Mhm.
I filled out this questionnaire. How did you fill it out?
Mhm.
Because I think it should be a communal conversation about
Mhm.
how we're all moving daughtering forward.
Okay, so tell everyone, hold up the book again. Where can they
Okay.
get the book and how can they connect to you?
Absolutely. So the book is called Good Daughtering. It's everywhere fine books are sold. So it's on Amazon, it's at Barnes and Noble. It is also, you can just go directly to my website if you want to buy it there. And my website is daughtering101.com. And that's
Mhm.
also where you can find me on socials, Daughtering 101 on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I also, if women are interested, I have a Substack where I go over new and emerging ideas that are coming up moment to moment. My favorite thing is hearing from women. What is your story? What have I not covered? What resonates with you? Because I'm a researcher at heart, so there's always more
Mhm.
coming. But I really appreciate you sending your listeners there because I think that change is only going to occur when
Mhm.
all of us start getting the picture and talking about it. So even this
Mhm.
podcast is moving us forward, and I love
Yeah.
that.
Oh, we'll definitely make sure we'll put all the links in the show notes and guys, everyone listening, watching, make sure you go out and support because I think this is an important topic. And I think that I know we're talking about daughters today, but I do think there's some nuggets that sons can take as well from this conversation today. It's just many things you said today. I thought about like my husband being an only child and just sort of going through some of these things, as his parents are aging, and so much resonates that you have said. So like you're going to be helping so many people through this work and through your book, Allison. So um If you have time, I'd love to do 3 things with Allison with you.
Yes.
Okay, this is where I ask you 3 questions that helps
Okay.
our audience get to know you just a little bit better. So,
Okay.
we're gonna start with a two-parter. How do you start and end the day?
Oh, great question. I start the day with a cup of coffee. I love, and I've got mine here in my France mug. I love my Nespresso. So
Okay.
I try to, saves me money, but also gives me a little bit of luxury in my day. And so I start the day with a coffee once I emerge from my room. I really try to end the day with prayer. And,
Mhm.
I think that that's a grounding practice, but
Mhm.
also for me, it reconnects me to living inside my purpose. And when the world gets frantic and chaotic, I really try to get back to what is God's purpose for my life, and am I living inside that purpose? So is everything I did today connected to that purpose? So I usually end my day with prayer.
Love it. Second one is, what's a current intention or goal that you're focusing on?
Yeah. One of the intentions that I have, and I talk about this in the book, is how I do daughtering.
Mhm.
And, I have a lot of crises about, like, am I a good enough daughter? I've literally written the book on daughtering. I'm doing research. I'm
Mhm.
talking about daughtering, and I always fight feeling inadequate myself or like
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
trying enough. But I wrote for myself an intention as part of my mission statement that I want, particularly my mom, I want my mom to feel loved in my interactions with her. So when I get too porcupiney, I need
Mhm.
someone to come and intervene because
Mhm.
then she's not feeling the love, she's feeling the sandpaper, the friction, the pokies.
Right, right.
And so that's one of my current intentions. And I think it's really relevant, salient for me because I'm going out with this book and talking about daughtering all the time,
Mhm.
that I keep my intention as a real life daughter. How do I help my mom? How do I help my parents feel loved? And how do I stay inside that and notice if I'm veering from that?
Mm, awesome. I love that. And the last question is, where are you currently finding inspiration?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. So I am often inspired by reading. I do a lot of reading, but I tend to do my reading on audio on my
Mhm.
phone on the Libby app. I love the Libby app, which is
Mhm.
a free library app. And what's, funny to me is my tastes in reading are all over the place.
Mhm.
So I love fiction and nonfiction. I love romance and fantasy. And
Mhm.
I think that one of the best ways that I can be inspired is trying to let my mind wander as far and wide as possible. So
Mhm.
letting it get outside the confines of my daily tasks and parenting and my job and being a spouse and all those things that homeowner that tend to get really rigid and
Mhm.
repeat,
Mhm.
but reading a wide variety of topics lets my mind wander, and I
Mhm.
get a lot of inspiration from yeah, from these books and from pop culture.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right. Well, Dr. Allison, thank you so much for coming today. And I am going to ask you one last thing before I let you go. It is, what are 3 things you'd like the audience to take away from our conversation today?
Absolutely. Number 1, you're already a good daughter. You, listener, are already a good daughter. You're doing so much that you don't even realize. And you need to start by giving yourself a pat on the back and a little bit of grace instead of judging yourself, and saying, oh, I should be doing more. Number 2, I want women to know that small changes over time really make a big impact. So if you're facing a family system that is like, this won't work for me, these people are impossible, intractable, um, small changes really do work over time. So it might feel like you're putting on braces, and it takes 3 years or 6 years to shift those teeth into place. It's not a quick fix, right? Doing daughtering and making these changes are not a quick fix. They take a long time. And the third thing I want women to know is you deserve to take care of yourself. So if that means stepping away from the family here and there, just remember that just because you can see something that needs to be done doesn't mean you're the one to do it. And so
Mm.
you deserve to take care of you, recharge that battery. And so I urge women to make decisions that allow their battery to recharge before going back in. And that is a protective and connective behavior as well. So that will help you stay connected to this family. My goal is to help women have better relationships and better lives and hold on to this family without burnout. So remember to take time for you when you need to do that, and that in its own way, that is a family connecting type of behavior.
Awesome. I love those. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Allison. You can always come back and share here with the community in the future.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll do that sons and husbands episode soon.
Yes. Stay tuned,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
All right, welcome back to the show. And let's thank Dr. Allison again for sharing today so much good stuff and so many great insights in the conversation today. If you'd like to learn more about her, make sure you check out the links in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about us at Glow Up Girl, you can visit glowupgirl.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tools, insights, inspiration, and so much more on your Glow Up Girl journey. All right, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at Glow Up Girl, and wherever you're listening, please don't forget to rate, review, and share. It helps more people find the show. And if you are sharing any of our stuff on social, or if you're sharing something cool on social, tag us in. We'd love to repost it or and cheer you on as well. All right. So if you're a brand, lastly, that is looking to partner, we are accepting sponsorships. You can check out our site, glowupgirl.com, and click on the sponsorship link. And also you can reach out. If you don't see something, if you want something more custom, reach out hello@glowupgirl.com. All right, that's it, my friends. Well, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. As always, thank you so much for all of the support. I will see you all next week. So until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.